up in America's hat, up in Canada, things have been going really kooky lately. At George Brown College in Ontario, when you log on to go to a Zoom meeting for this college, to take an online class, which are increasingly popular, you have to sign an acknowledgement. And you know, we have done this for years. You sign a privacy acknowledgement when you go use a social media site. They say, hey, we've got a 50,000 word essay here where we basically say we're going to take all your privacy away. Scroll to the bottom and agree. I agree. We always agree. Okay, if you use this service, if you submit a document this way, you're going to acknowledge and agree to these things. Okay, boom, boom, scroll down, agree. Well, this new agreement that you have to use is a little more ideological. It's a little more woke. Before you log on, you have to acknowledge this sacred land on which George Brown College operates. They say, it has been a site of human activity since time immemorial. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat, Mississaugas, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee, not Saucy. The territory is the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. That sounds like something made up in a Liz Warren cookbook, but that's real. You have to acknowledge that. An agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Anishinaabe and allied nations to peaceably care for and share the resources around the Great Lakes. We acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly the Africans. As settlers of the displanted, we benefit from the colonization and genocide of the indigenous peoples. It goes on and on and on. Just saying, we acknowledge we're terrible people in Canada, and we got to give the land back to the Washahashahushi, who we're not even going to acknowledge took it from the Halamananabe, but forget about that. It was fine when they conquered each other. It's terrible when our guys conquered them, and we acknowledge this. Yeah, and you have to agree. What if I don't agree with that? I don't agree with that. I don't think it's a terrible thing that the Christian West came in and conquered the New World. I think that's a good thing. I think it was good for the people, generally. It was bad for some of the people, but it was, broadly speaking, it was good. And I think it's good for the world that America now exists. And I think it's a good thing. That's fine. I think it's much better when the English conquered the New World than, say, when the Comanche conquered the Apache, right? I think that's good. But I have to agree to this in order to take the class. Now, they have a little disclaimer at the bottom. They say, by selecting I agree, you are indicating your acknowledgement of this statement. Our intent is not to impose agreeance, but to inform through acknowledgement. So they're saying, we're not making you agree. You just have to click a button that says agree. But don't worry, it doesn't mean that you have to agree. But do you agree? Agree. And in a world in which things are increasingly online, in a world in which we're accessing education online, where we're accessing community online, where we're exercising our political rights online, the people who control those online platforms are going to be able to get you to agree. And if you don't go along with their increasingly radical woke demands, you're just going to be shut out. It's not even just a question of the ideology, it's a question of the power. Who's got the power? Who can make you press that button? And are those the kind of people that you think should be ruling society? I certainly do not. Speaking of land disputes, this happened last week or 2 weeks ago, but I didn't have a chance to get to it. I do want to get to it. ISIS plotted to assassinate George W. Bush by smuggling assassins across the border. So an ISIS operative who was living in Columbus, Ohio, sought to smuggle terrorists through the U.S.-Mexico border to kill Bush. This according to an unsealed FBI search warrant application. And there are lots of questions here. One, apparently the feds were in contact with this guy. So that's good at least. We don't know. Sometimes it seems like the feds are just inciting people to commit attacks, like you saw in the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan. But maybe the feds here just actually intercepted this and jumped to the aid of George Bush and arrested this guy. We are seeing third world country kind of stuff here. We are now seeing a border that is so weak, so porous, that our own presidents could potentially be assassinated. Globalism is not working out very well. The promise of globalism is there are not going to be any borders. There are no borders to trade, no borders to politics or citizenship, no borders for anything. We're all just going to kumbaya. We're all going to become one culture. We're just going to give it up. All of our particular aspects of our particular culture. Everyone's interchangeable with everything else. And we're all just going to live in one happy world where GDP increases. And that's all that matters. It's not working out very well. You're seeing intense political instability as a result of this, up to and including the potential assassination of our own presidents. You would think that the libs would get the message. You would think that that would wake people up. Oh, didn't work out the way we thought it was going to. I'll give you another example. For years, politicians in both parties said, a rising China is good for everybody. Let's support China. Let's let China into the World Trade Organization. Let's encourage trade with China. Because as China becomes more powerful, that's going to be good for the United States. Some people thought this sounded good in theory. Joe Biden spread this theory. And then it turns out it's not true. Okay. So what happens when you realize it's not true? What do? Do you change your behavior or do you change your beliefs? You remain stuck. You don't do a damn thing if you are at these libs. They say, okay, never mind. I'm going to ignore what's going on. I'm going to ignore popular uprisings against our regime here. I'm going to ignore rising nationalist and populist sentiment. And as it grows, I'm going to try to suppress them, and I'm going to call them terrorists, and I'm going to let crook lawyers off the hook for rigging elections, and I'm going to do everything I can not to change based on the facts on the ground. It's the same issue you've seen with Will Thomas. I'm not even going to make the argument anymore that a rising China is good for everyone. I'm just going to enforce open borders through sheer tyranny of will. You're seeing the popular reaction against this. Just look at the race in Arizona. We've had Blake Masters on this show. Blake Masters is a Senate candidate in Arizona, and he is running a socially conservative campaign. He's running a campaign where he says Americans should be able to raise their family on a single income. I love that. I think that's great. He ran a campaign ad where he said, I don't think that the 2020 election was fair. I think it was rigged. I don't think Biden really won fair and square. You're not allowed to say that, but he said it, and I like that he said it. That guy is surging in Arizona. I believe he's now leading the race. Take note, all you Republican politicians. This is the future, at least in terms of what the people want. That is what the people want. That is not what the ruling class wants. That's not what the people who are writing up the agreements that you have to agree to on tech platforms want. That's not what the self-appointed oligarchs want. That's not what the Davos set wants when they're trying to reset our political and economic order. And you got to pick a side. You can either suck up to the elites who want to ignore the will of the people, who are still pushing this outmoded, completely discredited idea of globalism, of the idea that particularity is awful. Or you can see which way the wind is blowing. I think Blake Masters is totally right. I'm so glad you like that clip. Now, you know what you got to do. You got to smash and ring and bang and boom and zip and hit the bell and do the subscribe so that you can get notifications when all of my videos come out. You can also go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Leave a 75,000 star review. We'll see you next time.